You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Matt McGachy, the vocalist of Cryptopsy and the host of the Vox and Hops Metal Podcast, where I sit down with fellow metal musicians. We talk all about their lives and music while sharing killer craft beers. If you've ever wanted to sneak backstage and share a beer with one of your favorite musicians, well, Vox and Hops is the podcast for you. This week on the podcast, I dropped a killer episode with Kelly Schaefer of Atheist. There is this episode and over 440 other ones to help you enjoy life, metal, and craft beer. So what are you waiting for? It's time to become a Vox and Hops head. Cheers!
Hey, folks. I've got a special one for you today. I'm really excited about this one. I've been sitting on it for a while, although sitting on it wasn't intentional, so let me clarify some of that before we get into everything. So today's episode is with one of my very favorite artists, Mr. Dave Hause. He's played with the Loved Ones and a bunch of other bands and is currently making music under the band Dave Hause and the Mermaid, his brother Tim, and a bunch of other amazing musicians. Really, really great stuff. I love his songwriting, and yeah, been a fan for years. So this was a really, really huge treat to get to do. I recorded it back in February. I believe it's February, if my brain's not completely failing. Before COVID and before everything just went completely insane. Before 2020 was 2020 as we know it today. And man, it was awesome. And I cannot wait to get back to doing these kinds of interviews in person and in the venue. Sorry, it's kind of late and I'm tired. I always record these late at night and I need to stop doing that. I need to record them when I'm fresh and funky. Anyhow, sitting down with Dave was awesome. I sat down with him in the back of Mississippi Studios here in Portland, which is a great venue. I've caught a couple bands that I really enjoyed, including Sturgill Simpson back in the day. So yeah, good stuff. And joining me on this episode is my wife, Lynn. Unfortunately, this is part of the reason why this has been so delayed. She was recording on a separate device, and I forgot to hit save with her audio. So you can hear her. You can hear her through the other microphones, but it's not as distinct or as professional as I would like it to sound because I don't have her direct file because I'm a moron. So, but yeah, you've all been listening to this long enough to know that I'm a moron, so you shouldn't be all that surprised. Unless you're a brand new listener, in which case, I'm sorry. I'm not very smart. But, it was a really good conversation. We had some, again, this is why this one got backburnered a little bit, because it required some more audio massaging to make it work. We were recording in the green room of Mississippi Studios, and it's not exactly closed off from the venue. There is a door on it, but it's just a metal, wrought iron door with some metal mesh over it, and sound just goes right through there. So while Northcote, which is another amazing group, while they were sound checking, we were recording this, and there really wasn't anywhere else for us to go. It was pouring down rain outside, so we just kind of had to make do with what we had. So it took a lot of audio massaging to make it acceptable. It's not up to my usual standards, but at the same time, kind of gives it that nice vibe. So you might hear some things change here and there. We do about 15 minutes. We swap positions and try to find something else, try to find another spot. Didn't work out, so I adjusted the levels on my recording device and tried to make the best of it. So hopefully this is good enough for you guys. I personally would listen to this, so that's always my standard. Would you listen to this? Yeah, I would, but it's not up to the standards I usually shoot for. But as such, with live recordings, anything can happen, and that's just what happens sometimes. I'll just say happens like 400 times in this intro. Anyway, let's wrap this up real quick. But before I do, I want to remind you all about the giveaway that we're doing. If you go to pedalraffle.com, you can see all the details. That is going until this Friday, the 26th. I know this episode's dropping a little bit late, but you still have a few days to go enter that raffle, and that will help so many people. It's helping two very important organizations in Minneapolis, and I don't want to, make this intro even longer than it already is, but go to pedalraffle.com for your chance to win 10 pedals and a guitar. Let's just leave it at that. If you're curious, go to pedalraffle.com. All the details are there. And I will stop talking so I can start talking to Mr. Dave Hause. Here we go. Boom.
I've just always just assumed, like, once you're doing twins, that's got to be the hardest thing.
Initially, I think, but then they have a buddy, and
It's, at a certain point, I can see it getting a little.
Yeah, it's starting to tilt maybe in that direction because they're almost 14 months.
They like to play.
Yeah, yeah.
See, that's what's great. Right now, like, our 4-year-old will just, we're like, be nice to the baby, and so the baby just.
Yeah.
Attack.
Well, yeah, they definitely are pulling each other's hair and pushing each other over, but it to some degree, like, they definitely learn how to share before others,
Oh, yeah, it's like they don't know any different.
Yeah.
They have to do that.
Yeah, it's wild.
Has it been like a big adjustment for you mentally to be out doing this when you have the kids?
It's one of the harder shifts because, I mean, even just logistically, to go from getting up at 5:30 in the morning and going to bed at like 9. Mm-hmm. We're going on at 9 or 10. This tour started on the West Coast. And so my schedule is like, I'm like, what do you mean we're going on at 10? And
you should be putting someone to bed.
Yeah, whereas in Europe or on the East Coast, it's a little easier because of the time difference.
Right.
That's just like the logistical thing, but like spiritually, one thing I've found to be difficult is, I guess like the selflessness of being a parent. When I'm home and my wife's working, like I'm there all day, and sometimes you don't even get out of your sweatpants, you're just like in the mix with the kids, and it's really selfless. And I love that about it. And, it zeroes out your ego entirely. But we had like 4 months off and then started a tour with like a sold out show in Cologne. And the hardest thing about the first show, other than like jet lag and stuff like that, was getting into the headspace of being like a quote unquote front man, mm-hmm. and leading 500 or 600 people into the night,
right.
Where it's
like on a journey, sort of.
Well, yeah, you need a certain amount of courage and look at me kind of energy or whatever that is. Like, you hope it's in its purest form, but that's not what you need when you have children. You need the opposite of that. So that shift has been an interesting seesaw, but I do feel a little bit of whiplash from it. Like, I love that this is my job and I feel grateful for it. But beyond that, by a long stretch, I feel grateful for my children. So, but synthesizing those two realities has been difficult.
I can imagine. I can only relate on the tiniest of degrees because I don't tour around like that frequently.
Right.
I travel a little more for work than I used to, and I was just down at Winter NAMM in Anaheim. And as soon as I get to the show, we like are hopping out of the car to walk in. He was 9 months old at the time, or 8, something like. I lose track of that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had said "dada" a few months prior, and I was like, "Oh, that's great," but then he wouldn't say it ever again.
Sure.
And then she sends me a live video as soon as I'm like walking into the show, and he's dad. I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Well, I think that you have to. For me, it's been a recalibration of priorities and a dedication to doing this for the best reasons. On one level, this is what I do to help provide for them.
Right.
So I can sort of lean on that a little bit if I'm feeling irresponsible or, missing them or feeling like I'm not there. And I think on the other side of it is, it's important to think about the kind of parent or the kind of adult that you want your children to be. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, the best parts of this business, or whatever you want to say, or the best parts of this kind of work makes an imprint on the children. And, music has been a lifeline to me. And so I'm hoping that when the dust settles and they're into their adult life and things like that, they can say like, well, my dad tried to do something positive with his
Right.
time, you know, because I'm not David Lee Roth, you know, like I'm not chasing that rock and roll carrot as much. You know, I'm more trying to make a connection and give people something that is bigger than all of us. You know, that's the hope, is that there's some kind of, I don't know, that there's something bigger in all this endeavor than just like a night out or, you know, people trying to get laid or whatever. You know, like you hope that there's something, a kernel there that you can sink your teeth into.
Well, I think I personally can vouch for us sitting here right now. We've been fans for quite a long time. So, in fact, I was told, I talked about this on another podcast. I can't remember who I was talking to about it though, but we sort of pirated / downloaded off YouTube the revival tour when you were on it, and that was filmed in Germany in
cool.
2011, I believe.
Yeah.
And every performance on that was just fantastic, but I think that I listened to yours maybe more than any of the others. There was something about, there's always just been an earnestness with what you do that comes through. And I don't know how much of that is hyper intentional or it just is what it is.
It's funny you say that, because I think to some degree that is like a detriment sometimes commercially.
Right.
You know, I think people, there's a lot of people who listen to guitar music that want it to be cooler or something, you know, or like more detached.
Right.
And for me, like my heroes don't really detach. Like they're in it and they play for their lives depend on it. And that's kind of just the way that I've approached it. I don't know, for better or for worse, but I'm glad it cut through to you, and that something about that was you know, like struck a chord for you. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a thread going through, because there are bands that I didn't realize you were a part of. I was a fan of your solo stuff and the Loved Ones, and then I found out later that there were bands I was also enjoyed that you were involved in that I didn't
kidding.
realize that you were in. Like,
oh wow,
the Falcon and you know, Paint It Black and some of that stuff. I was like, I didn't know Dave was in that. Like,
yeah, I don't know if I was in it at the points where you liked them though. I guess like that's one of the questions to answer. But just real quick, is that gonna mess you up?
I'm guessing that it's probably going to be okay, and unless there's a quieter spot that it's easy to get to.
Not that I know of.
Okay, the one will be fine.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Like it's actually quite a nice.
It sounds nice.
It's like, yeah, we're like in the dream sequence of a Netflix show or something.
Yeah. Since we're gonna hang out here, we might as well tell people what's going on. We're kind of is this technically the green room? I guess.
Yes, this is the red green room.
The red, green, and blue room. And there's a steel door on it that's like a mesh steel door, and so we get to hear Northcote sound check while we're doing this interview, which is actually quite enjoyable.
Yeah, he's terrific. Their thing is so pleasing to the ear.
It's
so
very nice.
Hopefully it doesn't interrupt our conversation.
Yeah, we just start gazing off into the night. But supposedly this is a guitar podcast. Or so I tell people, and then we go off into any kind of random tangent that happens. But let's talk about gear a little bit. So I noticed you were playing a Sweet Junior, but I want to take a little bit of a journey. Like, what did you start playing on? And what was
the very first guitar?
Yeah, very first.
Well, my dad had this old like Sears Harmony guitar that he learned on that I started to learn on, and so I learned maybe 3 chords on that thing, and it was hard to play and kind of
course,
you know, kind of a mess. But then I wanted to get an Ibanez. It was that era like of Joe Satriani and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And
the shreddy.
That was like somewhere between the BC Rich that I wanted and what my dad thought I should get, which was like a Strat. And he was obviously right. BC Rich, you know, as your first guitar would have been terrible. So it was this Ibanez. It's still somewhere, and you know, it's not like a great first guitar. The Harmony's actually the better.
The Harmonies are cool, yeah.
But then I bought another Ibanez, like with some lawn mowing money, because I was getting into like really playing fast and you know, shreddy kind of stuff. But this was all probably like, I don't know, this was maybe all in the first couple years, like from 12 to 15 maybe.
Okay.
And then the great fortune came along of a family friend who worked for the Philadelphia Fire Department.
Okay.
Knew a guy, a chief, who had an old, quote unquote, old guitar that he had left under his bed. And it was a 71 SG that was in great, with a Bigsby on it. And it was in great condition. And he had all these vintage pedals as well that he was like, all that stuff. Like, can you give me $300 for all of it?
And you're like, yeah.
And my dad was kind of more hip to what was going on,
right,
than I was. Because my dad has always had great gear just by virtue of when he bought it. You know, like he has a 65 Deluxe Reverb. That's where I got the idea, you know, for what I essentially play now.
Right.
And he had a bandmaster that we would like try to play heavy metal through, you know. So
of course
it was always like I wanted to play harder, and the gear that my dad had and the influence that my dad had has always pulled me back.
Right.
And sort of landed at this, whatever this is.
This sort of middle ground.
Yeah. And I didn't actually just realize that right this second. That trying to play punk and heavy metal through a bandmaster.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the middle, like maybe you end up with something cool. I don't know.
Something unique, something special.
Yeah. So anyway, I got that SG, and then I was playing hardcore and stuff, and had a bunch of SGs, and still love them. But made my way through to getting my first P90 guitar. So that was, I figured out P90s when I made the first Loved Ones record. The producer had like a melody maker that Gibson was making for a couple of years, like in the early 2000s. That was just, it was a melody maker, but it was more like a Junior.
Right.
It was those like, you know, matte finish.
Oh, I know what you're talking
toy
about.
guitars with a really cool thin headstock.
Yes.
And I loved it. And it was really the P90 that I fell in love with, and the simplicity of that guitar. And so I bought one of those, and then bought another one of those, and then bought like a reissue Junior. And that was kind of my thing for most of the Loved Ones. I got a Les Paul that I ended up selling. It's too heavy, and really the P90 is what I always come back to. Right. And then I got into playing acoustic guitar, you know, and performing that way. So it was a couple Martins and stuff like that. So yeah. But yeah, that's kind of the journey. Was some Ibanez's, some SGs, and then P90s was what I started to focus in on.
That makes a lot of sense. Like knowing what those Loved Ones records sound like. Like, oh yeah, that is totally a P90. Like, yeah.
Well, again, you know, what we thought we were doing was playing rock and roll music, but we were punk rockers and hardcore guys, and so our version of that was still way too fast and way too loud and way too, like what our target was. Like we thought we're like, let's not do a band that sounds like what we've done before. Like, let's try to play like Chuck Berry. And it doesn't sound like Chuck Berry at all. It just is like three people in their mid-20s trying to go for what we were like kind of raised on, but shown through this prism of like having learned to play our instruments in punk bands. Right. So that's kind of how we ended up at that sound. And it's almost like you couldn't really repeat it in a weird way.
I can relate to that in a big way. Like my band made one record, and it's like you can totally tell, at least to me, you can tell when I'm playing. It's just like, what are you doing? You know, like you're trying to make like a 90s grunge thing, and it's just you're just blasting way too fast and doing weird things. But I can understand that because a lot of my influences, was what you guys were doing and Bouncing Souls and things like that. So that was big for me at the time and still is. So
yeah, that's sort of for me the main thing I've always gravitated towards is rock and roll. It's less punk, you know, like the Souls to me are a rock and roll band. Like clearly they wear the badge of punk rock. They love being punk rockers and all this stuff, but the thing that keeps me there is the songs. Yes. And the fact that for all intents and purposes, they're kind of just a souped up rock and roll band, just like Social Distortion or Hot Water Music to some degree, you know, like that's what I'm always, because there's a little bit of it's the roll that you need. The roll in rock and roll. Like, a lot of people can rock,
Right.
but you need a little bit of that roll, which is a lot of times like a soulful approach, and that's kind of what we were going for, and still what I'm kind of going for. But once you kind of get really going and creating your thing, you end up it comes out the way it comes out.
Right. It just is what it is.
Yeah, you just realize, damn it, we're never going to sound like Chuck Berry.
Yeah. That's why there's only one Chuck Berry.
That's right.
That's how it goes. So do you remember, I wanted to ask you this earlier, but do you remember what some of those old pedals were that came with the SG?
Oh, yeah. They were like Big Muff, and there was an old wah. I can't remember. My dad pretty much right away sold a couple of the pedals, which paid the $300 back.
Right, of course.
Because he wasn't really going to use all these old pedals. Like, at that point, this was probably in the mid 90s. Yeah,
so that was kind of before pedal culture kind of took off.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Like later, I've gone, where are those pedals?
Right.
10 years later. But are you sure this isn't too loud?
It might be. It was a little quieter before. Let me check.
Yeah.
So I changed some settings on my recording device to try to minimize the background noise. There's still some there. Not much we could do about it given the situation. It was pouring down rain outside, or we would have went outside. And yeah, that's just what happens when the green room basically doesn't have a door. It has a screen door on it for all intents and purposes. But that is just how recording on location goes sometimes. So here is the rest of the episode. Okay. We'll restart. Where were we? I forgot.
We were talking
pedals.
about
Pedals.
pedals.
Yes.
Pedal culture.
Yes, so he sold those pedals, but did you get into pedals? Some guys aren't that into effects. I'm kind of a nerd about them.
Not really. Over the last couple of years, my pedal board was pretty much just like a clone, a boost, a Maxon analog delay.
Oh yeah, those are great.
And yeah, those are cool. And then another digital delay like that the people at Seymour Duncan gave me that I just put on the board to kind of get like the end of the song delay, like the wow wow,
Was that the Vapor Trail?
Yeah, Vapor Trail.
All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of was the extent. That's the most extensive it's gotten in the last couple of years. But I'm kind of a less is more person, you know. Like I end up. I mean, like, even trying to figure out where to eat in this neighborhood was like so many options, you know.
Yes.
And I think that, you know, I mean, that's what people call, I guess, like option fatigue or something.
Yeah, option paralysis.
Yes. And I think that that's true for me with guitars too. You know, like even what Steven, like in Northcote that we were just listening to, like he can create this like delay kind of cloud over everything. It's so cool. And if I can sit in a studio, I could probably do that and with the right pedal and figure it out. But like, I wouldn't know where to start. You know, like it would take, like I would need a reference point, I guess is my point. So yeah, I haven't delved in. I should, like, right at the time in my career where I've had enough time to maybe do that, we had children.
Right.
You know, like I was like, oh, well, we could take more breaks from touring and things are going well and so on. And then we had kids. So I'm like, I'll probably not for a little while be in like the lab coming up with pedaled sounds. Like I'll probably be like, how do I finish this song?
Right.
You know? But they are cool. I mean, it's a cool realm. It's a cool rabbit hole to fall down.
It's a dangerous one.
It's expensive.
Yeah. I know. It's so bad. But yeah, there are even, I mean, I keep talking about it because it's weird to me still, but like there's even Reverb's doing a pedal movie about all these builders.
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff. Like,
I heard about this.
And yeah, and it's like, I'm like, wow, this has really changed from what it was. It's become such a weird,
it sort of makes
separate
sense.
thing.
It makes sense though, like economically though, because the big amps are kind of done. You know, like most people aren't buying like those giant 2,000. Well, I guess they're just smaller $2,000 amps, but I don't know. Like it's a cool like new. You can buy a pedal and like suddenly have a different bit of palette that you can paint with. So I get it. It's like for $100 or $200, you're like, okay, I'm in this whole other realm.
Right. Yeah. Completely
and that's
changes
cool.
it. Yeah.
You know, that's
something that in that trailer for that movie, Brian Wampler talked about Wampler pedals. He was like, they kind of started growing during the economic recession, which is sort of counterintuitive.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, it was like, because guitar players still want to nerd out and like buy stuff, but I can't afford an $2,000 guitar.
Right.
So like, oh, this $200 pedal will scratch that itch, and they started scratching the itch better and better and better and better, and to where it's like,
yeah,
they're like instruments into themselves now. In some
it's
of
true.
them.
I mean, there's definitely people who play the pedals, and that is cool. You know, like that's whatever gets the job done.
Yes.
As far as I'm concerned, in terms of like, if you can move the needle for people emotionally with wood or wires or pedals or your laptop or whatever does it, get it. You know,
yeah,
get
go after it. Do it. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all fun. So, what is it? Your approach to songwriting? Has it changed substantially over the years, or do you still kind of go at it the same way?
I mean, I go at it every way that you can, but fundamentally, it's the same. It's you can try to write something compelling to me and push myself past the point of comfort and cliche.
Right.
And there, somewhere in there's like usually a kernel that you can chase, and then I think the hardest part is as you get older is like where the line between editor and songwriter, where that starts.
How do you mean?
Because if you over edit, you can like edit yourself out of a song. You know, like if your critical mind is engaged too early, then you're not free.
Right.
And that freedom is kind of where all the ideas come from. You know, the editor is useful, but not till later.
Right.
You know, you don't want to squelch a little seed that's just started. You know, you don't want to like overwater it or underwater it. You gotta like. So I think those are different things about it. Like as I've gotten older, different approaches, but it's all just try to come up with a song I'd like to hear.
Right.
And I don't know. I wish there was a tried and true way to go at it, but there's really not.
Everyone seems to have a slightly different approach too. I asked the same question here a few weeks ago, Tepe from Thrice, and he was like, "Yeah, he's like, we do it all of the ways. Like, any way you can think of it."
They're kind of a unique band in that they're so musically proficient. Like each one of those people in that band, actually, they all play differently. You know, but each of them is very, very proficient at their instrument. So, yeah, I would imagine they do it every single way.
Yeah, that's what he said. They were like, any way you can think of writing a song, we've probably done it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely tried many, many different ways, but I think the one through line would be you have to grab an acoustic guitar at some point and determine if it's working. If the melody's strong and if the lyric can come through. For me, that's the test. And if it's sturdy there, then it probably will be sturdy when you add back in all the elements. Because sometimes you get to the song through the pedal or through the weird riff, or through the thing that is not actually the song. It's just a gateway into the song. So it's a peculiar thing. You're sort of like chasing. I think Leonard Cohen said like you're married to a mystery.
Oh,
and
I've not heard this.
It's something like that, yeah. And I think like in that same way, it can be monk-like or a nun kind of thing, like where you're like, what I'm chasing is always elusive, and it's something in the ether. Right. You know, it's not the songs I've already written. To me, that like someone else wrote those. Like those are just what I'll play tonight so that we can all be together and do a thing. Right. But the writing of it is like a chase.
It's like, do you feel like, I bet I know what the answer to this is going to be. You feel like it's a completely different person who wrote your old material than what it is now?
Hopefully, yeah. Like, hopefully that, you know, you grow and change and mature, and I think that's a big reason when people ask, like, well, when are you going to do more Loved Ones? Or when are you going to do, why don't you play with Painted Black? Like, a lot of it for me is like, I'm not that interested in going backward. Like, I'll look back, but just for a minute.
Right.
You know? And I think with the band that we have here, I can play any of those Loved Ones songs with a great band any night. And I don't have to be back in the framework. Like, I love those people. They all come to visit. I visit them. I love the guys in that band. When we're all together, you regress and you talk about who you were 10 years ago or whatever. Nobody really wants to do that much, especially because like those times for me were really steeped in like substance abuse and like wild living and a lot of sadness and and a lot of madness.
Right.
And it's just not the trip I'm on.
Yeah. It's not the ride you want to take anymore.
No, like I'm interested in chasing whatever the next song is. Like that to me is where I'm at.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I hope that answers your question. I might be
I think so.
Confusing you.
No, I think I'm on the rabbit trail. I'm following it. But not to get too deep into the sad, serious stuff, but substance abuse has been something that's come up on this show several times.
Oh, really?
Kind of unexpectedly.
Well, people who like to buy expensive guitars chase all kinds of thrills.
This is true. Yeah.
No. When I bought, so recently, I finally got a real Junior.
I really want to talk about that.
Okay,
thing.
so let's talk about it. So we're on tour with Bad Religion, which is... This is the second full run that Tim and I have done. Like, we did a run just he and I as a duo, opening for Bad Religion, and then they brought the band out. So it was Dave Hause and the Mermaid and Bad Religion. And Brian Baker is an amazing guitar player. He's a gear guy. He's like one of those guys you want to be on tour with if you're into guitar,
Right.
And he texted me. He said, "Hey, alert!" Like the text is something like, "Alert! There's a real legitimate one in a store 5 blocks from the venue.
Oh boy,
you need to buy it, or you need to really consider buying it." Because he's been after me, like, "Why don't you buy yourself a real Junior? You're sober. You there's a certain amount of success now. Like, give yourself that treat." And I'm like, man, now they're too expensive. I'm like, Billy Joe bought all of them.
Yeah, he jacked the prices up.
Yeah, or Brian did.
Brian,
Brian and Johnny Two-Backs. But anyway, so he was like, you really got to get one. There, you know the deal with these, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course. I just didn't buy one back then because I didn't have the dough. So it's a long story, but ultimately, we're driving over there, and he was like, "Look, do you have cash?" And I was like, "I do." He was like, "I don't have it on me," and he was like, "I do. I'll loan you the cash." And we're driving over there, and he was like, "Do you feel it?" And I was like, "What?" He was like, because he and I, he's also sober.
Right.
He was like, "Do you feel the rush? Like it's like we're going to do a drug deal." And I was like, "Yeah, it is."
Oh, wow.
And like the hairs on the back of my neck stood up because I was like, "Yeah, I'm amped right now. Like my adrenaline's going. Like we're going to go into a guitar store and hopefully get something that is going to make us feel high." And it was such a funny thing for him to bring up in the moment because I think to some degree he was like, "Okay, slow down, make sure this is a smart decision. It's a good investment. Like you did just have twins. This is an expensive guitar. Like let's talk through this." But it was really astute, his observation in that like we both obviously have lots of that in our past and that this is a remnant of that to some degree.
That is so crazy because I know what you're talking about with the guitar part. Fortunately, I never did fall into that.
Oh, wow.
But, she's right over there. That's a good reason not to, right? But I know what feeling you're talking about.
Yeah.
And
that's the feeling of cocaine.
And if that's what cocaine is, I now understand why people want to do it so badly.
Yeah. It's just what you realize over time is you're the only one who feels like that. Everyone in the room is just
like,
bummed.
Like, please stop.
Right.
Like, it's not as cool as you think it is, man.
No. It's terrible. It's terrible. But
that's crazy because I know exactly what feeling you're talking about.
Yeah. So that was kind of the way the Junior came into the picture. And watching Brian open the case and go over that guitar was so rad because he's bought many of them. You know,
Yeah.
I think he's got half a dozen or so, and he's bought lots of old guitars, and he's really an aficionado on all this.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, you know, kind of open up the back. I want to look at the pots, and he just kind of gave me that not overzealous look, but that like I think you should do this.
Like this is a legit.
Make this happen, you know. And I was like, okay, and didn't even have time to call my wife, you know. Like it was like they were closing the shop. They were like kind of these country dude, you know. They knew what they were doing. They knew what they had to some degree, but yeah, it was a trip. And so I finally have like the guitar I've wanted since the Love One, you know, since 2000 and maybe 4.
Wow.
And so it was kind of a victory, you know. Like I looked at it that way. I was like, well, it took me 15 years to feel comfortable enough to make that kind of investment in a guitar. Whereas like lots of other people who do my job are like, yeah, get the guitar. You know, like I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, they don't even have to think
But
about it.
I'm more of like a simple tools kind of guy. Like I'm not into like extravagant
Well,
purchase.
the Junior's perfect then.
Yeah, well, yeah, but not the price tag.
No.
So like my acoustics are much more of the like working tools kind of thing, you know. Like I love when a guitar gets beat on and can be useful, you know.
But, well, I want to get into those acoustics too, but before we stray too far from the Junior, what year is this?
It's a 1956.
56. Nice.
Yeah.
I have a 55. So
Whoa.
Mine was my grandpa's though. So
Whoa, that's even cooler.
That's the house is on fire.
Yeah.
You can take one thing.
Oh my God. So when what were the circumstances? My wife and I flew. Oh, we took our twins to meet everybody on the East Coast for Thanksgiving, and fires started to happen near, because, you know, we're in California. Everything burns. It's an insane place to live. And I texted my neighbor. I said, look, if you guys evacuate, don't worry about, like, just grab my safe. And there's a guitar, and I told them where it was. I was like, she was like, we're good. Nothing's on fire. Like the wilderness is on fire. We're fine. But
Yeah, you're like,
actually
hey.
was like tripping on it because of that, which is a little bit of a reason maybe to not have it, you know, because if you're that worried about a possession, then it might be wrong. I don't know. Like I'm going through this weird thing since I bought it, because I'm like, it's just a tool to get the job done, and the value that's placed on it is for a reason, but it's overvalued in my opinion. Like I don't think those guitars should be worth that. It's
Probably
crazy.
not for what they physically are. You're definitely paying for nostalgia in a lot of ways.
You're paying for that mahogany.
Yeah.
That's what it is. That mahogany sounds better than any other. It's because they hadn't like plundered the forest.
Right.
You know, like it was still in its infancy. So, I mean, that wood is really what it is. Because even like those Epiphones, like Tim's got a coronet. That Epiphone sounds incredible because it's the same mahogany.
Oh, that's an old coronet that he has.
Yeah, it's a 61. Yeah.
So
I mean,
cool.
like, and I've like skirted around the Junior thing for years. In fact, the last time we were on tour with Bad Religion, I bought an old Epiphone Olympia because it's
cool.
the same mahogany.
Yeah,
and it sounds really good. You know, if you put a P90 in that thing and like do a couple things to it, it sounds great. It's mostly that wood. And I bought a 12 string on that tour. Like when we tour with Bad Religion, it's dangerous because Brian is there, and he's like, you should go for it.
Yeah, just do it. It'll be
And
fine.
you know, they're big successful rock stars, so I'm like, it doesn't look that far away. You know, they just play after us. You know,
Yeah,
meanwhile it's 40 years more or something. But yeah, it's a dangerous situation. Against Me was on the first run that we did, and James was the same way. He was like everybody was nerding out about guitars.
Yeah, and you're just like, I'm not quite there yet. I'm almost there.
Yeah, I bought 2 on the one tour, and then I bought the most prized, expensive guitar ever on the other tour. So,
Yeah.
but I guess next time we go out on tour with Bad Religion, I don't know what'll happen.
It's like, I had to get the Holy Grail. You know, I just had to.
Right,
I just
yeah.
get 59 Les Paul. I just had to.
Right.
Sure. Let's talk about your acoustics, though. What do you got? What are you playing?
So, my dad had an old Alvarez that I knocked around on, and it was really hard to play, and so I never really took to it. I mean, I would sort of just hammer out stuff on it until I got really into Billy Bragg, and that was right around the time of the band before the Loved Ones, The Curse, and then I started, and he got a D18 that I was like, whoa, this is a real guitar, you know. Now I get it. Played that a little bit, and then I guess it was before that revival, so it was in maybe 2009 or 10. The financial crash had happened, and right in that, like during the Loved Ones, I was running a construction business too.
Oh, okay.
I was married, and I owned 2 houses and ran a construction company and had the Loved Ones going.
Oh, wow.
And was like partying my ass off. So it was basically like all these fires were lit, and I just ran around and poured alcohol on them to try to put them out. So by the time the financial crisis hit, like our construction business, we just closed. Like there was no more work. And I got an offer to go tour just by myself through Canada with Matt from Northcote. He had just started Northcote. This was in 2010. And I was like, well, there's no carpentry work, and the Loved Ones were kind of stalled out. Like we needed a break after 2008. 2009 we did very, very little. And I was working and stuff and just trying to make ends meet. And then I got this offer to do this tour in 2010 and needed a suitable guitar. And my grandma had saved this like bond. She was like, oh, I'm going to give each of you a bond.
Oh.
Like a savings bond.
Okay.
And it was like $1,000 or something. And all my sisters did whatever they wanted with it. And I thought it was like, oh, I'm going to invest in a tool that will make more money. And my grandma was like, I don't care what you do with it. Like, I was like, look at me. Look, I can turn this into a career,
Yeah.
So basically I took that and bought a D35 that I wrote all of Resolutions on.
Oh, there you go.
Did all the touring on Resolutions on all that revival tours, that guitar, and like that's like a prized. To some degree, that's like worth more to me than any other guitar.
Right.
And then this OM I've been playing since 2017, Martin lent to me as a, like, they were like, oh, I was like, look, I have all this promo stuff to do in Europe. Can you loan me a guitar that I can finger pick on?
Oh, gotcha.
The D35 is a little bit more of a strummer, and I just never gave it back. So
that worked out good.
So yeah, hopefully Martin is or isn't listening to this.
I don't know.
But no, my friend Mike works for them, and there's some fans in the Martin factory and stuff. So I think it's cool. Like they didn't ask for it back, so
it's technically just still on loan.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's when they ask for it back.
Yeah. So I have the D35 that I just keep at home now. It's a little hard to mix. It's like pretty boomy. It sounds great, but it's pretty boomy for sound guys that are used to mixing rock and roll,
Yeah. So
I just bring the OM. It's a little simpler. It's easier to finger pick. And then I also was loaned, I don't know who, so my wife's grandma had a 1954 Parlor nylon string Martin.
Okay.
It's an OM as well, like that kind of, but I'm not exactly sure. But it's amazing, and that guitar stays at home too. That's like the kids can't bang on that one or anything. It's like a family heirloom of theirs, and so my wife's mom was like, look, you should play this, like see if you can get some songs out of it. So those are like the 3 Martins that I have.
That's so cool.
That I use. Yeah, so they all kind of have a special thing. Not so much the OM, other than it was free.
Right.
Like that was a nice thing of them to lend it to me and not ask for it back. So like I kind of.
That's a very good price.
Yeah. And like we did all the Bury Me in Philly touring on that, and Tim and I did all of like our duo touring in 2018 on that, and then all of the kick touring has been on that too. So
perfect.
Yeah. So those are my 3 or 4 acoustics. I have a 12-string that's a Fender 12-string that a friend loaned to me when I got to Santa Barbara and never asked for it back. You're going to do more with this than I am. So I guess I don't really own any of these guitars. They all sort of...
Just the first one.
Yeah,
just,
right.
The first one.
But I was given that bond.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah.
Grandma bought it. But she got it for you, so it's all good.
So yeah, I mean, I guess for me, it's like if the guitar is... It's, they're all nice guitars. They all do their thing. But yeah, I'm pretty simple as far as what I'm in the search of songs, and tone is way down in terms of what I'm searching for. You know, like if I hone in on something, like my guitar sounded great today, and I was like, sweet, I'm not going to mess with it.
Yeah.
My guitar sounded terrible yesterday, and I think it was just simply that I waited too long to change the strings, and we were in a weird club that had like sort of a vortex for mid-range and high end.
It's weird how that changes so much.
Oh yeah.
The location is so crazy.
But yeah, for me, like, if I get it to sound good, I just kind of set it and forget it. That's like kind of the way I look at it, because I'm running after songs.
Yeah, you've got other things to do. Well,
yeah, I would love to be at some point, like that's what I was trying to do in the Falcon a little bit, was just play guitar, you know, and it was fun. You know, like I could kind of nerd out. Like, I mean, if I'm given the chance, I will nerd out about it and I'll chase those other dragons. But in this endeavor and with the limited amount of time I have now, I'm kind of like just chasing songs.
yeah, just got to get the ideas out there, get the melodies out there.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, at this point, if you've got a great piece of wood with a great pickup in it, in a great old amp, you're dialed. You know, like if you can't make that sound good, you really need to start over and
Try
figure out
something
what's
else.
wrong with your fingers, because so much of that work is done by those like wonderful instruments, you know. So
We didn't even get into the amps. We almost went completely away from that.
Yeah.
What kind of amp are you playing?
well, I'm a 65 Deluxe Fender, and admittedly, I'm having amp modeler out with me because I didn't want to bring my 65 out on the road.
It's understandable.
It's a, you know, awesome black face, you know, it sounds incredible, and that Kemper modeler is like, it's so convenient and gives you a ton of options that I don't actually take full advantage of yet, but
There's a lot of stuff in there.
oh my god. And that was another Brian Baker influence purchase. He's running those in Bad Religion.
Oh, he is?
Yeah. And sort of, you got to get one of these, you know, and I like it. I'm into it. I definitely feel like it's a great place to kind of do what you were talking about earlier. Like if I set that up in my home studio, I can like grab all these new sounds, and even if I can just go out and play a little bit on the Eddie Van Halen settings, you know,
Right.
just like try to sound like him for a few minutes, or the Edge or whatever, that's cool. But you can also sort of chase sonic landscapes for songwriting easier by just going to those preset, you know, modeled amps. And so I found that to be fun. I'm not totally sold on bringing it out on the road for good. Like we might get to Santa Barbara, like we're going down the coast,
Right.
and I might just push my 65 back into the van and have the modeler as the backup, because you know I wouldn't be able to tell the difference, except for I can tell the difference, you know.
Yeah. Well, I've talked about that before on the podcast, in the Facebook group that's tied to this show and on other things. I always have to explain this to guests because not everybody's plugged into this stuff. But like I'm always just like, modelers, boo, gross. But I don't actually feel that way. Like if I was doing what you do.
No, I'm with
know,
you. I fundamentally probably feel the same way, except
You can't argue with the utility at some point, though. That's the thing.
yeah, to me it's more like 65 Deluxe got stolen. Boo,
Yeah,
gross.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
or constantly having to get an old amp worked on you're in Dayton. I don't know who the hell the amp guy is there, or maybe I do in Dayton, but
Right.
you know what
For
I mean?
example,
it's just it becomes cumbersome and difficult, and frankly, like
if the Kemper gets stolen, it's like, well,
it sucks.
it's replaceable.
It's very replaceable, and the other thing is, all of this stuff is very easily masked by. What am I trying to say here? I guess the simpler I can make it on them, the better chances we have.
Yeah.
You know, because you could have that great 65 and a sound guy who is flirting with the girl next to him, and the 57 in front of it has fallen off.
Right.
So, and what good does your 65 do then? So to some degree, like the Kemper is a bit of insurance, and I'm only just putting my feet into these waters. Like I'm not 100% convinced.
Yeah.
Because I do have I have a Jubilee, like I have some nice, awesome amps. I have a Princeton, like I have the amps that you want. But at a certain point too, though, like I don't have a ton of space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to keep spending between, $1,500 and $3,000 on an amplifier that half the time I'm an acoustic performer, so like to keep buying, like, oh, I want an AC30. It's like, well, where am I going to put it? When am I going to ever even turn it up?
It's a lot of money. Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think like some of this is just, it's funny when I decided to buy a minivan in 2015.
She's trying to talk me into that right now.
And one of my friends was like, and the reason I bought it was like Tim and I were going to do all this duo touring, and I was like, I can either rent one or buy one and
probably
save a ton of money.
Right, exactly.
We had like a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend was like, how are you going to look cool pulling up to a club in a minivan? And I was like, here's what you don't understand. I'm going to look cool taking my wife out for sushi at the end of the tour with all the money that I saved. I don't give a shit. Like I don't give a shit about looking cool. And I think at a certain point, with some of this stuff, practicality sets in and budget, and sensibility, like I know something's going to sound good every night. It's appealing to me instead of like, okay, I have to have this thing because everyone thinks it's cool. It's like, again, it comes back to songs.
Yeah.
People come here for the songs. Nobody's coming here for the 65.
That's true.
No one cares.
No,
I mean, you care.
I care.
But you're not going to be like, oh, he brought an amp modeler.
Boo.
And now I don't like We Could Be Kings anymore. You know? Like that's not what got people on in the first place. And I think like that's something I try to keep perspective on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, we as players care way more than any of the listeners. There's like...
Yeah, but I do think there's there's a certain thing about the caring is cool.
Mm-hmm.
The obsessiveness about it can get, to me, like it can overpower the joy. So I just try to keep all that stuff balanced. It's hard.
Keep it in check. Yeah, it's easy to run away and then you become me, which is a dangerous
But you
dangerous
started a
thing.
podcast, and that's a positive way to talk about all this knowledge that you.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. And I get to do things like this, which are a lot of fun and not things I ever thought I would get to do. So that's really
I do
fun.
love when you're with gear people who are just joyful about it. They're just like pumped on the stuff that they know, and it's like not judgy. It's like, oh, this is what this does, and like I love that energy. That's so much cooler to me than like, oh, that's not a cool thing. Like, don't play that.
Oh
That's
yeah,
like,
I'm so over that. I mean, I love like cheap pedals, like old DoD things and things like. I love that stuff just as much as any of the other things.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to consider is the last two records we made with a guy who owns like all these '60s ricks and like old guitars, like the stuff that the Beatles were playing on. That kind of like that's when he bought his guitars. They're worth a fortune now. And they're so hard to play. They're
really?
Like, oh my God, those old Rickenbackers are crazy. And I guess to me, like, those guitars weren't thousands of dollars then.
No.
They were cheap. And so that's why I hesitate to give a whole lot of credence to like the boutique and vintage. Well, I mean, the vintage part, some of that's true, but some of the stuff is just overblown. Some of it's just like supply and demand, because I think a cheap guitar, you can write the best song anybody's ever heard on, like there's something really cool about that to me.
It's true. I mean, there wasn't boutique back then.
No.
It was all being made kind of not, it wasn't all being made the same way. There was definitely some junk guitars, but like there wasn't this like, there wasn't very many like guys in their basements like soldering pedals and stuff.
No,
it just wasn't the same thing that it is now. I'm glad that we have all the options that we have now, but you're right. Like Bob Dylan didn't need it, so
no, he didn't.
He didn't need it at all.
Yeah, I think all of it, if used as like paints on a canvas. That's the way to use it all. In my opinion, that's kind of how I view it.
I think so.
But I say that it's a little bit bullshit. Like I have a real specific set of stuff that I think sounds good.
Right.
At the same time.
Well,
I'm saying
everyone has their favorite color.
Right. That's right.
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
fair.
That's really what it is.
That's fair. There was a question I got in the Facebook group earlier that I want to pull up here. So I'm just going to make small talk while I scroll through my phone and try to find it. Because why would I be prepared? That's a silly thing to do.
Actually, I'm going to... Hey, one sec. Hey, Tim.
Oh, I found it.
Okay.
Oh,
sorry. No, that's fine. I just have to give the sound guy the playlist.
Oh, okay, cool. So John Schick Jr., he wants to know if he was going to do a split with him and Brian Fallon covering each other's songs, what Fallon song would he want to cover, and what song of his would he like to hear Fallon do?
What song would Brian Schick want to cover of Brian of?
No, you.
Oh, me.
Yeah,
me.
I'm just saying.
The pronouns were confusing.
John Schick Jr. is who asked the
question.
question.
I thought John. Yeah. I was like, well, John Schick Jr. What song would you like?
No. It's like.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Probably that song May.
Oh, I love that song.
That's a beautiful song.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were on the Revival tour together, and he came down from the back lounge. I was like, "What do you think about this? I think this is going to open our next record." And it actually, it didn't. But
right.
I was like, I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, like, all this time we're down here drinking and carrying on. He's, like, up there in the back lounge working. I was like, I got to get back to work. So, yeah, that's a great one. There's a song on his new record that I can't remember the title. He sent it to me a couple months ago about his daughter that I think is really...
Oh, I don't know if we've got to hear that one yet.
Oh man,
live.
Yeah, it's a.
He's slowly trickling them out there on us.
Yeah, this one's my favorite from that batch. I can't remember the title, but the lyrics really good. It's really sweet.
Cool.
Like any songs about kids right now, I'm like pumped on.
Yeah. Pulls at the heartstrings.
But probably May. Yeah.
Okay, May. That's a great song. And then flip flopping that, which one of your songs would you want to hear him do?
I don't know. Maybe Saboteurs. I sent him Saboteurs, and he said like the nicest thing anyone said. He said, "We're all just trying to write Tom Petty songs." And you actually did it. And I was like, whoa, thanks, man.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was really sweet.
That's the first thing I thought of when I heard that song.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's rad.
I was
yeah.
like, wow, this is kind of got a Petty vibe. This is cool.
Yeah, he was like, you did it. None of us have done it, and you did it. I was like, oh, thanks, man.
That's awesome. That's great.
I thought that was...
Not the take that our 4-year-old had on it.
What did he say?
He said, "Is this
Everlong?
is this Everlong?"
He's
Isn't
4.
Everlong like 40 BPMs faster?
Yeah. He's 4. He doesn't.
He doesn't know.
Yeah, I was like, Everlong. Where's he getting that one from? But he'll learn.
Everlong's a good song.
Hey,
It's a good song to get confused.
Yeah, take the comparison.
I think it was a compliment to you.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Definitely.
4-year-olds know best.
Yeah.
When it comes to music, like they usually hone in on what's doing.
He definitely knows what he likes. And it's funny how big of a blend it is between. We have a lot of crossover, her and I do, and what we enjoy. But then like she goes much more poppy than I do, and I go much more heavy than she does.
Gotcha.
And he's got this weird blend. He will want to listen to ABBA and He Is Legend. And
yeah, I don't know what that is. He Is Legend. Hey, 1 second, Tim.
Yeah.
Can you just give this to the sound guy? The playlist. No, it's just a link. I'm gonna shoot you the link to the playlist. Sorry, excuse me.
No worries. That's the stuff that makes it fun. Yeah.
Yeah, we are on tour.
I don't really. I don't like cut much of that stuff out either.
Yeah,
because it's just
I
like
suppose it's
the vibe.
It's proof we were actually here.
Yeah. We had one where the power was out in the venue and we're in and out of a van, and I just left all that in because it was fun.
Yeah,
it was a good time.
I do. I'll text you. I'm gonna shoot you this link first. Okay, sorry.
No worries.
So yeah, that I don't know. I think that'd be a fun split.
Yeah, that'd be a good time. Lynn, did you have any questions you wanted to ask? I just put her on the spot. Now she's going to freeze like a deer in the headlights.
They don't have to be gear related.
No.
I mean, he can thank me for this.
That's true. She was
you
like,
gotta
make
have
sure.
it.
She's like, you gotta message Dave. Message Dave. I was like, I'll do
cool.
it.
Thanks.
I'll do it.
I'm glad you did.
Because I'm
I
on
was the one who asked for some Loveland songs
Yeah.
on, I think it was
Instagram. So
Oh,
I'm
okay.
here for whatever.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll see about... I haven't made the set list, so there's still time. There's still time. Let me just double check that the guest list is in. Otherwise, there'll be friends of ours standing outside.
oh.
Yeah, that's it, Tim. You got those? Yeah. Okay, sweet, thanks. So, wait, what was your question? What was your question?
Yeah. What was your question?
I don't
You didn't have a question?
Okay.
Oh. Well, what are you? You're not going to be podcasting very good. Come on.
I mean, I'm just more about like the kids and stuff.
Like, talk about the kids.
Yeah, the kids. Holy mackerel. I'm flying home at 6 a.m. tomorrow to see them.
Oh man.
'Cause the drive, obviously, from Portland to California is long. And it's one of my favorite drives. But the band's going to do it. I'm going to dip home and see them for 2 days. And then the tour really kind of starts.
Yeah,
Because then we're, like, gone.
right. This is closer to home.
Yeah, well, I'll see them maybe the morning of Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Because that's only 90 miles away. But...
Yeah.
Yeah, then we're gone for about 2.5 weeks, which is the long. Well, no, some of the touring last year was a little longer, but
Yeah.
I'm recalibrating some of that to keep close to them.
To try to condense it as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's really like.
I can't imagine. I being a stay-at-home mom, just even going to the store, I'm like, okay, well,
This is too much.
it's hard for me to imagine what
Yeah.
on that scale.
It's hard. It's hard. And I think that the weirdest thing about it is that it sort of requires a level of detachment that I'm not okay with.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to sort that out,
Yeah.
But I guess what I rest on is the RZA from Wu-Tang Clan. He got asked this question. He tallied up all the time he would spend with his kids if he had a 40-hour work week. And he spends way more time with his kids
Right.
so I kind of lean on that because when I'm home, I'm with them, the whole time.
Yes.
And yeah, it's wild. It's wild to be on this part of the journey.
Well, right now they don't know.
Well, right, and that's what friends of mine have said. Chuck Reagan was like, honestly, man, it's going to be harder when they're telling you they don't want you to go.
Oh.
Because I was like lamenting it to him in the summer, and he was like, I hate to tell you this, man, but it's going to be worse.
It's going to get worse.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that'll all shake out. I mean, in my mind, I'll take them, and the more I think about that, the less it seems reasonable. Kids need structure, and they need routine, and touring routine is really boring. So,
Yeah, for a kid. Which kind of leads into something that I was just thinking about while we were talking about the kids. I feel like, not on purpose, but I'm definitely like pushing my musical interests on my sons, like just somewhat by osmosis, but also like, no, we're not going to watch TV. We're going to put on a record now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. We don't probably do that as often as we should, but like, and it seems to be rubbing off on them. And then I was thinking, how much of that are they responding to because we're kind of pushing it, or how much of it is genuine interest? And I don't know if you've experienced anything like that. They're still pretty young, so it's hard to tell.
My kids are really little. They're only 14 months, so. But there's definitely stuff they dance more to and less to.
Mm-hmm.
And one seems more into Bright Eyes, and one seems more into the Bouncing Souls, which is kind of a trip.
That could lead into adult life.
Yeah, but they both love Lizzo, and they both love Aretha Franklin.
Nice.
And my thing initially, like in the first year, was like try to play as many of the classic performers and records as I could. Like they've gotten a lot of the Beatles, the Jackson 5, Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, like I play them a lot of Patty Griffin and Brandy Carlisle and stuff like that. So I try to keep it pretty rounded. I don't play them a lot of punk rock because I don't listen to a lot of punk rock, to be honest. Like I played them the Souls and Alkaline Trio and stuff like that, but that actually gets played more by my wife than me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You've been overexposed.
Yeah, and I mean it. Yeah, exactly. Like I've spent so much time in those realms, and but they've heard a lot of Tom Petty, which can't be a bad thing.
No, that can't be a bad thing.
Yeah,
It's impossible.
So that's kind of been my thing. I don't know. Like I'm hesitant to push anything on them. I'm just trying to, live my life and have them be as much of the guiding light in that life as possible. So whatever rubs off on them, great. Whatever doesn't, that's cool too. Like I guess to some degree, like, I'm 15 years older than my brother Tim. And there was plenty of stuff I tried to turn him on to that he got into. And there was plenty of stuff that he didn't. Like he hears half the stuff, like the hardcore music that I still think is cool. And he's like, please, I beg of you to turn this off. So, everybody responds differently to that stuff, and it shakes out how it shakes out. But
Would you like them to, in whatever musical way, would you like them to be a part of something?
oh yeah, I mean, but to some degree, also sports. Like I think it would be great if they got involved more in sports than I was, just because I think it teaches you a lot of valuable lessons that I didn't really see then. And but yeah, I'm hesitant to push anything on them because I got so much stuff pushed on me, in terms of like religion and stuff like that. But I think with music, it's been such a positive force in my life that hopefully it's something that we can all enjoy together. I don't know if they'll be as obsessive about it as I am, or as like.
Maybe you don't want that part, but
Maybe though, like I mean, that's been a really wonderful thing to have in a dark world. Sometimes is to have that like really passionate, intense relationship with music. So yeah, whatever makes life better for them is I'm cool with.
Yeah, that's a good way. That's a good way to be. Whatever ends up making you as happy as music makes me.
Yeah, I don't.
goal.
I mean, I would probably opt for No Limp Bizkit, but
Hey,
But I mean, even then, I'd be like, okay, I guess we're going through this.
if you say there'll be a phase, but maybe.
Right. Yeah. I even said that. I was like, that's exactly what they'll gravitate towards if you make a big deal out of it. So. Yeah, I don't know.
Just don't say Fred Durst's name 3 times and he won't show up.
Right. Yeah, they'll both have like little red hats on.
Chainsaw.
But yeah, I don't know. As far as the gear stuff goes, though, like related to them, like it's funny. I'll let them pretty much bang on almost any guitar that's around. Like that's a big thing for me. Is like not to be sacred with those things.
Oh yeah,
I let my kids play my piano, and like I let them like beat on that 1954 Martin like they've had on the floor. That's a little crazy, and the juniors kind of away from them. But I don't like. To me, I would love it if they just approach those things like, wow, these are the tools of the trade, like, and I can touch them, and I can, be part of this thing, like.
It's not only dad's thing.
No, that's not the way I look at it. My dad was more like that, and his stuff is all really still nice. Yeah. That's the difference. Half of my stuff is like falling apart, and
Maybe a balance.
yeah, there's right. Balance is always the desired goal, but
yeah. Not we, but my dad and mom got both of our boys guitars. They are not old enough to even know how to play them at all. But I'm like, here, this is yours.
Yeah. Actually, Fender.
But they're actually decent guitars. So
yeah, my buddy at Fender sent 2 ukuleles for
nice.
One for each boy when they were born. It was so sweet.
That's so cool.
And so they bang on those a little bit. But I'm actually, the only reason to keep the guitars away from them is because like the strings at the end
They're
where
very
they're
sharp.
cut are sharp, and they're little tiny fingers. Like I don't want them to cut themselves.
We've all got one of those under our fingernail at one time.
Oh my God,
It's like,
it's the worst. It's the worst.
Just crippling. Just
Yeah.
shanks you right under the fingernail.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
It's so bad. It's
Yeah.
insane how bad that hurts.
Yeah.
Well, we are getting pretty close to the end of this thing, and I got a couple classic questions
Okay,
that I
shoot.
need to ask before
Yeah.
we wrap this up. So, the first one, well, actually, there's 3 things we need to do. The first one is this is kind of your shot to say whatever you want. You're on tour right now. This is going to come out while you're still on tour. Or if there's just anything you've been wanting to get off your chest to the world and have a few thousand people listen to it, this is your chance to put up a billboard.
Yeah, I'm not really that much of a billboard guy. I mean, I hope that liberal democracy stays alive within the course of the next year. And I don't think that'll be that divisive a thing to say on a guitar podcast.
No,
but you
I don't
just
think so.
never know.
I don't think so.
But no, I love that there's a guitar tone podcast. That's so cool to me because I love guitars and that's what we do, you
Yeah.
know. And it does to some degree feel commercially like a dying art or something. You know, like it feels more like we're playing jazz than it does we're playing like today's music.
Right.
You know? So I think anything that helps support that and celebrates that is cool. Like being able to talk about guitars and guitar heroes and stuff like that is so rad. You know, like Brittany Howard. It's
Oh.
like, you know, the fact that
I
she's...
want her on so bad.
Oh my God, she's amazing. I'm going to see her when we get home from this tour, and like the fact that she's more at the center of the zeitgeist and playing that awesome SG
Yes.
is so cool to me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I don't know. I'm glad that you guys asked me to be on, and glad that this exists. And
Thanks, man.
we are always touring, and we bring our guitars.
Yes. Come see him.
Yeah.
We'll we'll make sure and put the link to your website for all that information in the show notes so people can track that down.
Yeah,
easy.
I think it's just davehause.com, so HAUSE, and that'll have all the stuff that we're up to, and you can find links to the records and so on and so forth. But keep it simple and get weird.
I like it. Man, that could be a new tagline for this show. Keep it simple and get weird. I like it. All right, we'll get into the last couple questions here. So the first one is, what is your favorite Boss pedal, if you have one?
Favorite Boss pedal would have to be the simple distortion pedal.
The S1?
Yeah, the orange one
It's awesome.
that my friend Dave Adolph stole from me. He still has it, and he claims that he didn't steal it, but I think he took it from me. Yeah, probably that one. That was the first one I got,
The DS1's great.
and I loved having it. I haven't played through one of them in like maybe 15 years, but that one got me so pumped.
It's a great pedal. It kind of got like put to the wayside during the first like the boutique thing when it first came out. But I did a thing on Instagram probably 6 months ago where I took my baritone and plugged into it.
Oh, cool.
I didn't show. I was like, guys, guess what pedal this is? And I just played some stonery riffs.
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of people, it's a Big Muff. Oh, what is that? And then it's like, it's the DS1, everybody.
Yeah,
So
that thing's cool.
it's a good pedal.
Yeah. That would probably be it.
Okay, good call.
Yeah, I don't know how much I would use it right now, but I
Right.
guess for usefulness, it would probably be the digital delay one, like the classic.
Yeah, the DD3 or
DD3.
something.
Yeah. Because you can do so much stuff with it.
Yeah, and it just does what you need it to do.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, Boss pedals are the ones, Like, I love all these boutique ones, and I'd love to try them out, but in my mind, those are kind of like the gold standards. Like, those are like the Strats and Tellys of pedals.
Well, they really kind of started it.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. They were the first to make one that you could drop off a building and it's still going to work.
Yeah, exactly.
And they sound great and
Right, and everything's $100.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Good answer. All right, this is the last question. This is probably a lot more divisive than anything you've said.
Uh-oh.
Because this is a hot button issue.
Okay.
What's your favorite kind of pizza?
East Coast pizza.
East Coast.
Yeah, there's no other kind of pizza.
Well, what from which city? There's a lot of cities.
Well, I
on
mean,
the East Coast.
everywhere from Connecticut down through. I mean, I'm not even going to put Delaware on there.
Okay.
Maybe Delaware. No Delaware.
No Delaware.
So yeah, basically from Philly up to Connecticut.
Okay.
There's good pizza,
All right, sweet.
and then there's passable pizza throughout America. You know, this is pizza we're talking about. It's
Yeah.
a delicious treat anywhere you get it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's done the way that people want it. Celebrated the world over on the East Coast.
I agree.
Mostly New York
agree.
City and New Jersey.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
But yeah, Philly has great pizza. Tons of it.
I will say, in this town, I know you're not going to have time to go find this because you got work to do. But next time you're coming through,
Okay.
I got to show you some spots.
Pizza spots?
Ask Brian about it.
All right.
Yeah, he was shocked.
Well, listen, California has everything but pizza. They do pizza terribly. There's one good shop where I live, and it's
Oh.
like artisanal pizza. So it almost doesn't count, because it's like, it's $15.
Right. It's like a wood-fired thing or something.
Right.
I love that
Right.
stuff, but it's
I
not
do
the
too.
same thing.
That's not the same thing.
No.
And, it's kind of like Mexican food in the Philadelphia area. Like, it's good, but it's expensive. So you're sort of not getting, it's
not
not
the same thing.
comparable.
Yeah.
Yeah, further away indeed. But yeah, pizza will have to be East Coast.
All right. I like that. Well, that sounds like a good way to wrap up this podcast. So thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was
Man, this is
lovely
great.
to talk with you guys.
I'm stoked to watch the show. This is going to
Yeah,
be fun.
hopefully we don't disappoint.
All
Hopefully
right.
the tones are right on.
The sound check was good. So,
Okay,
I mean, I was like, oh, yeah, this is going to be good. All right.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming.
Right on. All right. For Dave and Lynn, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right. We did it. That's another one in the can. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this episode. I know it kind of feels like a whole different world than what we're living in today. It's kind of insane. But it's comforting at the same time. We are going to get back to that. I know that everything is going to work itself out, and we're going to be in venues watching rock shows again, and I'm very excited to be doing that. Again, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but please go to pedalraffle.com so you can see how the gear community has banded together to help two really important organizations doing very important work in the city of Minneapolis. I won't go into all the details because I already have on previous episodes, but please go to pedalraffle.com. Check that out. All that is ending this Friday. And yeah, if you'd like to support the show, please leave a review on iTunes or whatever streaming platform you are listening to this on. Share it with a friend. I know all of your podcast hosts beg you to share this with your friends and your community, but I'm dead serious. It helps so much. New listeners is the most important thing for any podcast, and this is a totally independent medium, and I like to think that the ears mean a little bit more over here. I'm just one dude doing his thing, trying to get this content out into the world for you all to enjoy. And yeah, I hope you did enjoy it. It was a lot of fun for me to produce, and I want to keep doing it. And I can't do that without you listeners. Seriously, thank you so much for tuning in to this point. There are a million things you could be listening to right now, and I'm very happy you chose this podcast. So please share this with somebody you care about. All right, until then, please go check out Dave's music and maybe download another episode of this while you're, doing whatever you're doing. All right, I'm tired and rambling. Good night, folks. See you on the other side. And by the other side, I mean next week. Bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.